I was at a Halloween party held at the house of my former best friend, Nick. This was a house that held dark secrets and memories. Nick had a penchant for throwing extravagant Halloween parties every year, filled with terrifying props that he'd spent a fortune on. His parents, they were away in New York, leaving the house in our hands. But little did we know that this night would be unlike any other. Nick was a true Halloween fanatic, and his house was a testament to that. He'd set up giant cardboard walls covered in eerie wallpapers, creating a haunted maze that we were all too eager to explore. But let's fast forward to the point where things took a chilling turn. Let's just say that our judgment that night might have been impaired. But then again, anyone who attended one of Nick's parties knew what to expect. We were upstairs with Nick, my buddies, Vinny G, Joey, and Q. We were all engaged in a rather hazy session with a bong when we heard a series of loud, heavy thuds coming from downstairs. Nick, panicking, rushed to the door to investigate. There was screaming, cries of fear from both guys and girls. It was like a crowd of people, terrified for their lives. We called Nick to get back inside and lock the door. Even in our altered state, we sensed something was terribly wrong. He locked the door behind him and had a look of sheer horror on his face. We knew better than to ask questions at this point. Nick switched off the lights and hid in the closet with Joey, while I crawled under the bed with Q. Our friend Vinny G squeezed into a storage box. From our hiding spots, we could hear the thumping music downstairs suddenly go silent, replaced by the voice of a man shouting for everyone to be quiet. Then came the chilling silence, followed by the sound of gunshots. It was as though something unthinkable had just occurred. From our vantage point, we couldn't make out what the man was saying, but we knew it couldn't be anything good. Then we heard two more voices joining in. We knew now there were at least 3 intruders in the house, but it could have been more. Then we heard the unmistakable sound of boots coming up the stairs, stopping right outside our bedroom door. The intruder tried the doorknob, but it was locked. He resorted to ramming the door with his shoulder. A few shots at the doorknob, and the lock gave way. The door swung open, and the room filled with dread. I watched, hidden beneath the bed, as the intruder in black boots moved instinctively to the closet. Nick, with desperation in his eyes, begged the intruder not to kill him. He offered a significant sum of money for them to leave. Nick, in a brave move, gave himself up as the owner of the house. The intruder ordered him downstairs. The rest of us stayed hidden, our hearts pounding. Joey had managed to avoid capture. For what felt like an eternity, we heard little more than hushed whispers from downstairs. Then, the front door slammed shut, and Nick came running back upstairs to tell us that they were gone. But it was when we ventured downstairs that we saw the harrowing truth. 2 lifeless bodies, Jen and Robbie, our dear friends, lay on the floor, blood seeping from gunshot wounds. The horror of that sight is something that has haunted me to this day. I'll spare you the details of what unfolded when the police arrived. The house was a haze of marijuana smoke, but the authorities were more focused on finding the masked men who had taken 2 innocent lives. Nick, in the midst of his grief, turned to drugs and spiraled into a world of addiction. It was during one of my last conversations with Nick, tears streaming down his face, that he admitted he lived with the constant pain of knowing he caused the death of his best friends. And tragically, Nick himself succumbed to a heroin overdose in July of 2013, not even a year after the incident. My three friends and I were out in full Halloween attire, trick-or-treating in the bustling downtown. Downtown was always the place to be, filled with houses close together, meaning more candy with less walking. By 10:30 p.m., we were practically the last kids still out, and most houses had closed their doors. We decided to call it a night for trick-or-treating and move on to other fun activities. As we wrapped up our candy quest, we spotted a lone figure emerging from the dark fog in the distance. It was a person in a terrifying clown costume, complete with a sinister smile and blood-filled boils. We screamed and laughed, assuming it was just part of the Halloween spectacle. Little did we know, this was just the beginning. We decided to head to a nearby park, where we planned to goof around, creating chaos with silly string and shaving cream. To our surprise, we found traces of silly string and shaving cream on the playground equipment, along with some not-so-friendly messages scrawled on the bathroom walls. It appeared that others had already left their mark on the park. While we were all hanging out on the playground, Jay pointed out something chilling. Two clowns were slowly making their way towards us. One of them was the same clown we had seen earlier. The other clown, the newcomer, was even more disturbing. They began to approach us at an agonizingly slow pace, and the humor of the situation quickly wore off. As they got closer, we realized that something was seriously wrong. Suddenly, they began to charge at us. Panic set in, and we all scattered in different directions. I found myself being chased by one of the clowns, and I ran for my life, not knowing the area too well. Eventually, I made it to LA's house, where I called him and informed him of my arrival. Ella was out of breath, but told me he had lost one of the clowns too and was on his way over. We decided to call our other friends, Jay and Kai. We regrouped at LA's house, and the four of us began to piece together what had just happened. We had a good laugh about it, now that the adrenaline was wearing off. We even enjoyed some of the candies we'd collected. Kay eventually went home, leaving me, Jay, and LA to hang out in the living room, playing video games and having a great time. But then, things took an eerie turn. Jay spotted something outside the window. He ducked and told us to turn off the TV. A clown was outside. We hesitated, then looked out. Too late. The clown had spotted us and locked eyes with me through the window. We quickly shut the curtains and retreated. Ella's parents weren't home, so we couldn't turn to them for help. Instead, we shut off the TV and retreated to Ella's bedroom, peering out the window to make sure the clown was gone. We didn't see either of them again, but the scare had left its mark. The next morning, L.A. texted us, saying he had found a rubber clown nose on his backyard patio table. It was deliberately placed there, a chilling reminder of the night's events. Mission accomplished for those clowns, as they had truly terrified us. Halloween had arrived, and I noticed only a couple of houses had modest decorations, some pumpkins and signs. It wasn't a typical Halloween neighborhood, but I decided to put up a small trick or treat sign on my door and got a small bag of candies to hand out. Back in my old neighborhood, I'd buy big bags of candy, but I wasn't sure if this place celebrated Halloween. As the afternoon rolled on, a few small groups of kids came by, but it wasn't the Halloween extravaganza I was used to. I was a bit disappointed, but the day wasn't over yet. By 10 p.m., I decided to call it quits and put away the candy. ready to watch a scary movie to wrap up the night. Just as I was engrossed in my movie, the doorbell rang. It was almost 11 p.m., and I was surprised. I peered through the peephole and saw a child, perhaps 10 or 11, in a homemade costume, black cloth with red accents and a black mask. I opened the door, but my concern grew as I noticed he was alone. I smiled and asked if he was okay. The boy stood silently. Looking behind him, I saw no one. I asked if his parents were nearby, and he finally said yes. Confused, I asked why he had returned to my house. The boy replied, asking for more candy. I held out my bag, but he grabbed just one piece, looking somewhat annoyed. He then ran off, leaving me perplexed. The strange encounter had already put me on edge, so I locked my door and went back to my movie. However, something outside caught my eye. The motion sensor lights near my garage suddenly activated. I stared out the window, but saw nothing more. The unease began to gnaw at me. Deciding it was time to get some sleep, I went upstairs to my bedroom, still pondering the peculiar boy from earlier. As I lay in bed, ready to doze off, I heard a soft rustling sound followed by loud, violent bangs on my front door. I sprang out of bed, my heart racing. Silently, I made my way downstairs, my phone in hand, and approached the front door. The banging continued, and when I peeked through the peephole, my blood ran cold. The same man I'd seen across the street earlier was at my door, clad in the same eerie costume. I knew I couldn't open the door, unsure of what this man wanted from me. I was cornered. The man had something in his hand, but he was too close for me to see what it was. I couldn't risk opening the door to find out. He pounded on the door relentlessly. I retreated upstairs, locked myself in my room, and called 911. The man continued to pound on the door for what felt like an eternity before finally going silent. The police arrived, and I cautiously let them in. They found a broken window in my kitchen, the point of entry. I ended up staying in a hotel for a few days to ensure my safety. Halloween is just around the corner, and the memory of that terrifying night still haunts me. Who was that man, and what did he want? I'm still searching for answers. If you enjoyed this spine-tingling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay safe this Halloween, and I'll see you in the next video.